A lot of you have been commenting about the media coverage I'm getting lately from CBS Eye in America, from NBC, HBO, the New York Times, Washington Post, and various other publications. And I think it's important to notice the moment we're in. We're no longer a people that is hidden away, but we're actually coming out of the closet. Now, they may not like what they see, but the truth is, you're sane, they're crazy, so just buckle up, Buttercup, because it's going to be an interesting ride for a little while. Now, for all of us that are praying for the folks that have been impacted by these hurricanes, and we have family members, we're all connected, some great people that are going through these traumas right now. You look at this, so unnatural it seems to have storm after storm, and I've heard all kinds of theories about the origins of these hurricanes and everything, but it doesn't matter what the origin is. What matters is if you're in a state of an emergency, whether it's tornadoes, hurricanes, blackouts, EMP, electric grids going out, that's the wrong time to be checking the cupboard to see what you've got or running down to the store and trying to stock up. You actually have to think proactively. You know, we've been talking about this for years. I remember when I was with Jim Baker on his TV show, and I'd listened to him talk about stocking up, and it always bothered me. It was like a little voice came to me and said, someday you need to do that, don't you think? Well, I started acting on it, and I did. My someday came. Your someday is right now. Go to lancewallnau.com/patriot for your own peace of mind, for your children, for the friends and family that aren't going to do it. You need to stock up like I'm a mom and dad, just like some of you, and I'm taking care of my kids. I'm thinking, what do I need to do for their sake and my little grandchildren now? Go to lancewallnau.com/patriot. And take a look at the number of opportunities you've got for different size, small or large ways of preparing. Whatever you get is going to be, it's going to have the calorie, nutritional, vitamin content that's going to be able to last a year or two. You don't have to worry about it going bad. Make the decision now. Go to lancewallnau.com/patriot. You'll be glad you did. All right, let's dive into what's happening this week. It's wild. Greetings, friends. I wanted to give you this special update here from the studio. You know, if you've been paying attention, I don't know if you've seen it. I certainly get it. I get the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Huffington Post. I've just been getting hit a lot in the media lately. And, you know, it's not flattering to be constantly misrepresented. And for some reason, it's happening on an ubiquitous scale. And so I thought maybe I would explain. I'm going to have to do this because I'm even getting texts from, family members that are going, what's this I'm reading in the Philadelphia Inquirer? So we have to talk about some of these ideas. Why are they labeling people like me as extremists? I don't know why they're calling me extremists. Let me explain to you why this kind of freaks me out. Because America has gotten weird, and normal people, just Christian patriots, are being labeled as extremists. So I want you to we've gotten so used to this. But I want you to remember, Rachel Levine shows up, and here's going to be your attorney general. This is going to be like in the tradition of C. Everett Koop or different types of, I'm not sure he was an attorney general. He was running for attorney general. But when you've got stable figures like that, and then suddenly you have Rachel Levine show up. Okay, that's the trans community influence. But then I'll tell you what, the one that really blew my mind was the guy that was in charge of the nuclear regulatory or waste management program or whatever that was. What was his name? It was Samuel Britton. He was a non-binary, but I mean, come on. So here's the guy who shows up with the red lipstick, bald head of the dresses, and he's doing his thing. Then they had the TikTok McElvaney girl going around, guy going around, Bud Light person going around, doing all of those cute little scenes on the day that we did the Afghan withdrawal. And so you could see the juxtaposition of America's tilt into the bizarre. And you know what? Christians have a problem because we don't want to appear to be uncharitable or judging or in any way rejecting, because we believe that all human beings are made in the image of God. But it doesn't mean that everybody is coming out in the package or in the format that God has actually endorsed. And so America's had this kind of free fall. Now we get to an election where President Trump is being briefed right now as he's on his way to Colorado, because we're finding out the Aurora gangs, that are the Venezuelan gangs that actually mutilated a girl over there, that they're coming out of Venezuela, out of the prison system. But worse yet, there's ties to Hezbollah. After Donald Trump did the hit on Soleimani, Hezbollah began to decentralize, largely moving into Venezuela, and from Venezuela coming into the United States. That's when you got 300,000 unaccounted potential terrorist individuals floating around that ICE can't seem to identify, but they were pegged as potential problems. This is where it's going to start to get to the point where I'm not apologizing for myself. I'm not going to excuse the fact that, yes, I am a Christian and I have beliefs. I think they're crazy. I think you need more Christians, intelligent and educated conservative minds that are out there. When the abortion debate has been so manipulated by the left, so it comes down to a woman's right to her own body. Nobody's arguing about a woman's right to her own body. The question is, ask any Democrat, what month do you agree is the appropriate time for the abortion? Now look at this, an infinite 9 months. Do you go all the way up there as the platform they've got is willing to go, or even after birth, let the mother decide if the child should live or leave it alone? I'm not being an extremist here. I'm the one who's being rational. That's the way that goes. When I think about the fact that Dr. Ben Carson says that I guess it's around 10 weeks in or 13 weeks in, as a doctor, he would administer a painkiller, anesthesia, to the fetus in the womb because the child is capable of feeling pain. So at what point after that, what month after that, do you feel comfortable aborting that child if it can feel pain after like 13 weeks? So I'm not the one that's irrational when it comes to these ideas. When you got kids that are being groomed in the curriculum of schools, so that little boys or little girls between the ages of 9, 10, 11, 12 are being solicited, pressured by their peers and by their teachers to determine, is the boy in the mirror a girl or is the girl a boy? And they should not have to mess with that kind of a thing at that age. But you've got I think it's like 13,000 complete, maybe 19,000 complete surgeries already done on these children, mutilating their body parts, causing them to take hormone blockers that dwarf their development. Even if they want to reverse it later, they live with lifetime ramifications. In England and in Finland, they're putting a stop to this, the whole surgical procedure, because they're getting sued and they're realizing that there's a vulnerability. What is happening in America when you've got 20% of Gen Z kids thinking they're queer or gender fluid? And it's all because of social pressure backed up by industry, which is making a ton of money off of this stuff. As we know, we can all trust those companies, can't we, in the medical community, be looking out for our best interest and benefit. So you got these kids that are being pushed in this direction, and you got activists, well-funded activists that are like Washington hit squads, putting the pressure on so that school boards are actually pushing against the parents. What I'm saying is Christians have an awkward role to play because we want to be peacemakers, and we do believe that the ultimate answer is the gospel, and therefore everyone is created in the image of God. We don't want to be sounding like we're, some kind of Handmaid's Tale characterization of Christian extremism, but they will do that to us regardless of what we do the moment that we step out as a Christian with a worldview. So recently I'm getting hit by comedians. Okay, so you take your shots if you're going to be a public figure. But I'm serious about this. I want you to take a look at the pantheon of Christian leadership, intellectual leadership over the ages. And I want you to see who the gods of the new age are that are educating Americans on Christian thought. These are the commentators on what Christianity really is. St. Augustine is where we start with, the North African theologian, philosopher, St. Francis of Assisi. This is the pantheon of Christian thought. Martin Luther, of course, comes along, the German theologian and reformer. Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher. John Wesley, the intellectual giant who forms the Methodist Church. William Wilberforce, who eradicates slavery in Great Britain. C.S. Lewis, the British author and philosopher and fiction writer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the famed opposer of Hitler. And who is the commentator that is mocking Christianity? John Oliver, our new intellectual force to be reckoned with. So a week ago, I get notified that I've got, Oliver is doing a hit on me. And I wouldn't mind it if it was over what I'm actually saying. What I hate is when the New York Times, the Washington Post, and these people misquote or mischaracterize what we represent. Because we're not the crazy ones, folks. We're actually the normal ones. So we're going to take a break right now, but we'll be right back. What happens if a natural disaster takes place? We have these weird tornadoes that hit in the Midwest and in Texas, but look at the hurricanes in Florida. People can literally have their houses flooded, or they're in a situation where they have no food or access to groceries. everyone needs at least a 4-week emergency food kit. And fortunately, My Patriot Supply has created a 4-week emergency kit. And these products will last for 25 years. The interesting thing is they give you a 2,000 calorie per day meal. And that's the key. Delicious and 2,000 calories a day, because that's what you're going to need to sustain yourself for 4 weeks in a crisis. We had a winter freeze here in Texas, of all places. And we had a couple of days where we had no electricity. I'm telling you something, this makes a huge difference. Mushroom rice pilaf, fluffy rice and mushrooms, seasoned with red wine and herb. And then how about starting the day off? Maple Grove oatmeal, old-fashioned oats, maple flavoring with a pinch of brown sugar. This is what you want to do. 4-week emergency food kit, and that's just for you. Think about your children. Guarantee somebody around you is going to need help. You're going to want to at least have the 4-week emergency kit. Go to lancewallnau.com/patriot. Use that link, and you're going to get a special discount on their special 4-week emergency kit promotion. If they can juxtaposition you as an extremist or irrational or dangerous, that's the language they will use. And I think right now I'm at the point where I believe we have to kind of come to an agreement that there's nothing that you're going to do as a Christian that is going to mitigate the slander or the persecution or the characterization they're going to do against you. But they got to be ready for the pushback, because we're actually not going to go away. And I'll tell you why we can't go away. Because what you have with the whole trans or anti-Israel or pro-Marxist movement that is in the education field is the fact that if Christians abdicate curriculum in the local schools, parental engagement with their children, or what's going on at the university, if we leave the secular field and we only go into our Christian schools and Bible colleges, we're leaving them vulnerable. The whole country is being discipled by crazy people. That's my point. Then you go over here, I'll use a different pen for this. You go over here to the entertainment media mountain, which is where I'm getting clobbered right now, entertainment, arts, and media. Well, what's happening with arts and media? If we don't show up over here, and we don't have a presence, which is why I'm so glad Russell Brand and and Elon Musk and Jordan Peterson and a Rubin, and we are finding more advocates that are coming out and say, hey, you can't be pushing God and the sacred out of every sphere, because then what you end up is the prophets of Baal are in charge of the false prophets, is what I say. The false prophets are out educating the masses with media, misrepresenting the truth. You've got the false teachers over here, and it's interesting. You've got teachers and prophets basically on both sides of what you would say is the big kahuna, the big dangerous one is the government mountain. If we abdicate our position on government, then they will enforce their agenda over everyone. Because at the end of the day, when I talk about trans issues or abortion issues or freedom of speech or the Electoral College, this government with the wrong people at the helm, this educational institutional power here, this media power here, folks, there's only so much resistance you can do by separating from or folding your hands or trying to lob intercessory grenades or blow your shofar. You've actually got to go into where the strong man's house is. You got to go there. That's why the attack is going to happen. And I would like to say that it's going to be a fair fight. It will not be, because they have a collusion apparatus at these levels. The same, they got one source that basically comes against guys like me. A scholar who's a fuller scholar on Islam and, Christianity and, Hebrew scholar. They got one source ubiquitously quoted in 7 different articles. Why? Because there's just not that many people who think I'm a threat to democracy. But they love to have someone who calls himself a Christian scholar be the guy that attacks guys like me. So what I'm saying to you is, hold the line. Because what's happening now in America is we're heading into this cycle where a decision is going to be made as to what is consolidated in government. Because whatever happens over the government of this country is going to shape the future. I believe Elon Musk is absolutely right when he says this could be our last free election. Who knows how many illegals are actually here? Who knows how many terrorists are already here with the 10 million that have already come over the border. And why is half of America wanting to even vote for a trans agenda or an extremist abortion agenda? Let's figure out what month you want to go on and let the states decide that. This isn't an issue of women not having a right. And what's going to happen with the freedom of speech? It was Tim Walz just recently came out, and these guys, it's just more time, and we'd hear the crazy stuff that they're really thinking. He says, well, we should get rid of the Electoral College. You know why? Because the popular vote will be able to determine, well, sure, legalize 10 to 20 million illegals and just let California and New York decide the destiny of America, because there you have the biggest cities there. Where your biggest cities are is we're going to decide for you what the nation does. The problem is the biggest cities traditionally are hyper-Democrat, and it's the rural areas that are more Republican. And so there's a balance between the two. They don't want the balance. They want to take over. They want to eradicate the Electoral College. They want to make probably the District of Columbia a new Senate seat, so they can dominate the Senate, maybe Puerto Rico, add it as a state, so that they could figure out one way or another to remove the Supreme Court balance of power, to dominate. And folks, if their agenda is able to be pushed and their fiscal policy of pumping trillions of dollars into the public market that drives up inflation so they can fund their crazy energy ideas that don't work, you know what's going to happen? You're going to have an economic depression like you've never seen. You're going to see domestic unrest. Then what happens? Well, then they're going to want to go for the law-abiding people's right to self-defense, because they'll take any incidents of domestic destabilization and they're going to say, that's what we got to do. We got to get the guns. And you're going to look at the eradication of freedom of speech. And if that's what happens, well, then America is no longer America. It becomes a reduced rubble, and the world shifts. This very well could be the last days and what happens. But with 60 million Christians, the crime that we'll find out about in eternity is God gave us a government where it didn't have to be. We could have made it different. We could have actually made it different. I think it's 1 out of every 4 Christians, I'm hearing 3, but I think it's more like 4 Christians, isn't registered to vote, won't vote. Half of the church, I'm told in some statistics, isn't registered to vote, doesn't vote. And there's the tragedy, that you had the ability to navigate around the hurricane, but you decided to fly into it. And that's the reason why people like me are willing to take the hits we take, not because we're against all these other people. Like I said, the Christian worldview is, man, if you're lost, then you don't know where you are. And the gospel is there to help give you an eternal perspective so that you can live a sane life. But it doesn't mean that we are silent. And it doesn't mean that we're going to be without a presence, even if it disturbs people like John Oliver and the HBO comedian sect. This is my news for the day, giving you my update. And we'll cover more about the Christian nationalist attack and the dominionist allegations, because I really believe what scares them the most is that 60 million might ever wake up and exercise the authority they have to make America great and free. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.